podcast is powered by PKF. PKF, your trusted advisor in the Hunter for over 45 years. Down to Business acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters this podcast is recorded on.
G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of Down to Business. Great guest today. In the media a lot, but I'm sure probably more than he wants to be. But we've got the Knights coach, Adam O'Brien, join us today. And whilst we might think, well, what sport got to do with business? Personally, I've been involved in sport all my life, not at this level, obviously, but I think it's got a lot to do with business, and there's a lot of things business owners can learn from, and I think you'll get that out of this session. So, first of all, welcome, Adam.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
No, mate, absolute pleasure. And rather than me talk about so much what you do, I think that's an obvious from a point of view of the viewers. But always start with giving a bit of a background and I guess not the obvious what you do being a coach of football, but some of the stuff you get involved with each day, and a bit about how you got here.
Yeah, well, firstly, obviously what I do is coach rugby league, but I guess the why is, look, I've got a deep love for the sport. I'm very passionate about rugby league itself, been involved, playing from as long as I can remember. I think I was 3 or 4 years old, and stuck in the underage for 4 years. And so, I've always had a deep passion for it, but also like the aspect of being connected to a group of people chasing a common cause. I think that's, the competition, the process and preparation that you go through each week just to win a game of footy can be quite satisfying. So, look, I'm really blessed to be able to, work in an environment that I have a deep love for. But I think being connected to the group is certainly a big aspect of it. And then the other part is, I guess, your responsibility to young men that, helping them fulfill their dreams is quite satisfying. Yeah, so look, our day-to-day is, well, the obvious answer is we're trying to win footy games and win as many as we can and ultimately win the big one at the end of the season. But along that journey is also some young men that have put, I guess, what is their, formative years of their lives in your hands. So understanding that responsibility and then honouring that is really satisfying and a challenge as well.
Yeah, I love that aspect. I think so many, I think we lose, I guess the essence of some of these kids coming through the system actually coming quite young.
Yeah.
And it's only the very small percentage that actually make it.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, to give you an example, we've just recruited 2 young boys from England. It's the first time away from mum and dad. But they're not just moving down the road, they moved to another country and just spent 2 weeks in quarantine. And I had dinner with one of them last night, and he had to ring back home to use the washing machine in the hotel room. He'd never washed his own clothes, and it sort of hit me that there's so much more to just teaching rugby league. It's about teaching them to become, good young men, and I guess all the things that go along with becoming an adult is, partly my responsibility as well.
Yeah, I guess especially we see all the time where there's, whether you call it modern day or whatever, but everyone's got a camera and all the rest of it. So it's one element as you said, become young men, but also then how to act for all stakeholders and the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, they are young men, no different to what we're seeing in society. So they face the same challenges. So I guess getting them to understand that they're very fortunate to live the life that they're currently living, but at the same time, having a little bit of empathy for them, that they're going to make mistakes. They're just because you're a rugby league player doesn't, certainly doesn't excuse any poor behaviour, but they are no different to another 18-year-old down the road. So, it's a big part of, mine and the rest of the staff and the club's responsibility to guide them in the right direction.
Yeah, sure. That's great. And then, you've had you're not from Newcastle.
No.
So you've had, obviously, a long time in rugby league and been through all walks of it, I guess. So, a little bit, how'd you end up here?
Well, look, initially, my first coaching job, professional coaching job was in Melbourne with the Storm. I started there in the end of 2007. We were starting the under-20s competition for the first time, become the Toyota Cup it was back then. And it was, it was close to living a first grade life as a 20-year-old could do. You know, they were flying in, they were staying at the hotels and playing in the big stadiums. Because Melbourne, is so foreign to rugby league, you sort of lacked the dad down the road that had good footy knowledge that could help the team. So ultimately, I was really blessed. I landed an assistant coach's role with Brad Arthur, the current Parramatta Eels head coach. And I was a full-time assistant. I think I was on 50 grand living in Melbourne, and I think I was doing about 12 to 13 hour days. But that all sort of paid off. I wouldn't be here without those sort of years. I spent 4 years doing that with the under-20s, and then as time went, I progressed through the ranks. So Craig Bellamy promoted to what we call a transitional coach. So the guys that are just outside your top 17 that are going away to play in your reserve grade competition, really focusing on getting them up to standard to play NRL for Craig. And I've done that for 2 seasons, then he promoted me to be his attack coach, and I remained that for, I think it was on 7 years, something like that, 6 years. And then I had a year with the Sydney Roosters last year before, being offered the role here at the Knights, and jumped at it. And look, the town is very much suited to my wife and I'm from Batemans Bay on the south coast, and my wife's from Ulladulla. So we're very, coastal country people, and this is just a bigger version of our hometown. So it was a really, really good fit for us.
No, it's great. I know you're held in high regard. I actually did the Kilimanjaro trek last year with Robbo.
Yep.
And really, gave everyone there, all the Knights boys, a bit of, you got a good thing coming. So I think that works really well. But I'm probably jumping ahead to some of my questions, but some of the structures you've been through, or programs you've been through, clubs, are very much that, from what I understand, structured.
Yes.
How has that played a part? Have you always been structured? And again, for the viewers, I try to push structure all the time within a business. How has that helped, or sometimes maybe not helped?
Yeah, look, certainly I know that I wouldn't be here without having, a high level of structure in my life. I guess to put it in perspective, holidays for my wife, the first 2 weeks are torture for her because I'm so regimented, and it can be zero fun when you're up at the crack of dawn and got an itinerary for the day set. But I'm wired that way. I think I function really well if I'm consistent and structured, because I think the 80-minute performance for a player and the coach at the end of the week will be a reflection of what you do day in and day out. So if you're unstructured and a little inconsistent off the field, it will find a way in your performance. So I guess there are times though that you can be too structured in terms of the actual game. I felt sometimes in Melbourne that we were quite structured, especially with our attack. And given the calibre of player that we had there, I felt that we needed to open up a little bit of freedom and I guess explore new opportunities. And we did that in 2016 and 17. I thought we had extremely good seasons. We missed out by 2 points in the grand final in 16 and then won it in 17. And I felt that stepping outside that structure probably helped us a little bit.
Yep.
But certainly you have to have the good structures in place before you step out.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't practice this obviously, but that was a great answer. I think, in a business, it amazes me how, up to 70% of small businesses fail in its first 2 years. And I think so many people just going without any structure, without any plan, without any, the word I love that you just said, consistency.
Yeah.
And wonder why, and when you're thinking this is going with all your hard earned and go, this is what I'm going to do, and then come out the back door, it's not great. So this is the stuff I think links straight to what you're talking about with teams and having that, great structure during the week to give you game day performance, or from a business point of view, make sure you get the best results month in, month out. So
yeah, I think when I sat down and looked at, obviously the Knights, but then how I'd like to coach, I actually read the Jim Collins book, Good to Great.
Yeah, it's good.
And there were so many things that I guess I use with the team now about understanding what your core business is and really focusing in on that. So I guess when you're stepping outside your structures, it's not compromising your core business, making sure that you nail that. And to use I guess the analogy that we use with the team, we spoke about, big companies like Coca-Cola, they'll branch out into, confectionery and energy drinks, but they never compromise that red can. That's the main thing that's sort of got them there, but they don't compromise that. So certainly we have some performance indicators around the team that we call our red can, and we wouldn't compromise that for anything, but certainly we'll branch out in other areas and explore different situations.
No, that's great. We had Fitzy in here last week, obviously an IB Fitzy, and you got the red can, he's got the red queen, so
yeah, right. Okay.
It's a very interesting one. So, obviously you're big on teams, and that's you're in a game of teams, but it's interesting. Nearly every guest we've had on this video series has talked about teams and the importance of teams and teamwork. I guess with teams means more and more because it's you live and die by. What does teamwork mean to you? I guess, and teams for that matter, as opposed to the obvious.
Yeah, look, being connected to something bigger than yourself is hugely important, to us. Individuals, there's no doubt there's individuals that are striving to get their own individual success, whether it be rep teams or, hire contracts and all that, there's no doubt. But making sure that everybody's aligned to a common cause and to feel like you're connected to the group that's bigger than yourself is hugely important in rugby league. It's a team sport, ultimately. So I think for me, teamwork is doing your job so your teammate can do his. The moment, even just not quite fulfilling your whole role, someone else will have to pick up that slack. And then the machine won't work if everybody's got to do bits of each other's work. So firstly, getting the guys to understand what it is that they do and then what it does for the team. Certainly you have to spend a lot of time, I guess, getting the players to understand that what they do directly affects everyone and the outcomes that it gets. And I guess it's attaching the what with the why, and then of course getting them to understand how to do it is important. But it only takes a few in the team to be not fulfilling their role in an 80-minute performance for it to unravel. So I guess that's what teamwork is. It's sort of knowing your role, honouring your role, and getting it done.
Yeah, no, it's great. I guess it leads to the next one about, business owners deal with recruitment every day. You deal with recruitment quite a lot, trying, as you said, win football games. But, I know even for ourselves, we employ a lot of people, and when they come in, we make sure that we put them through certain protocols before we even worry about whether they're offering a job. From your point of view, and for viewers to learn something, what kind of effort from your point of view, or research, or whatever it may be, process goes into recruitment? And I guess a second part of that is you're valuing skills and experience versus values and attitude.
Yeah, look, recruitment is something that we evaluate every day. We're always looking at the roster and how we can best put the team and the club in a position to ultimately win premierships, and making really, really sound, good judgments on the people that you let into your organisation is paramount to that. So, I have a philosophy that we recruit good people first, making sure that, look, when you go through turbulent times, good character is going to hold you together. Now, there's no doubt that you need to recruit a certain level of talent to win footy games. There's no hiding from that fact, but sometimes, not always, the more talented ones can have that questionable character, because they are, I guess things have come a little bit easier for them because they have natural talent. So you need to make sure that I guess if you're recruiting the talent, that they're young enough that your environment can shape them over time. I think if you're recruiting older talent, then there's, I guess, years of, ingrained behaviours there that are going to be hard for you to change. So, look, letting the wrong people into your organisation isn't fair to the right ones, so we place high importance on recruiting good character first, but I guess the other part is allowing enough talent in there that you can develop their character as well. Sure. I think the process for me is having a targeted approach on what you need at the time or what you're looking for, and being really clear on, I guess, the skills and attributes that are required for the position that you're chasing. And then also, I guess, identifying areas that the person that you're recruiting in, areas that they excel in, but then also finding ways that you can improve other parts of their game. Identifying that, taking them through, I guess, how you can get them to that. I think that's a huge draw card especially in the competitive environment of a few clubs chasing one particular player. Players want to develop, they want to get better. So it's not always about, I guess, being flattering and you need to identify how I'm going to make you better, because ultimately that's what the players want. So,
and I imagine back to your first point you raised with, where you see your role in bringing these kids along as men too. I mean, I only can imagine that most, as you said, you're going to get some players that don't care about any of that, but you'd have a lot that obviously want a home and to be part of something.
Definitely. Look, during the season, you actually spend more time with the team than you do your own family. They're there at training for often 8 hours a day, and the weekends you're away, staying at hotels and playing footy. So, look, it can become quite easy to be attached to that, but not taking it for granted and highlighting or looking for ways to get even more attachment. Because, as I said, during, whether it be form slumps or, real turbulent times, it's the connection that you have with each other that's going to hold you through those times. And look, it's important that you're enjoying the good times to get that connection as well.
And I imagine, like I said, your first head coaching gig, talk about turbulence, walk into COVID.
Yeah.
How did that play out for you, and what role do you have to play even more so supporting some of these, especially the younger guys, a bit uncertain?
Yeah, look, I felt the apprenticeship that I'd done under Craig Bellamy down at Melbourne Storm, and then obviously with Robbo at the Roosters, I felt really prepared in the art of coaching in terms of the game, but there was no manual for COVID. So it was the first time for me, it was the first time for Craig, it was the first time for Robbo. So I think being adaptable on the run with that, because there were so many things that were hitting you in the face each day, that, being able to, I guess, roll with the punches a little bit and try have some sort of level of anticipation on how we could get through this or what the best practice was, but hitting bumps in the road, being able to, I guess, showing a form of courage to stay the course in the things that you wanted to get done. But look, there was so much more than the game of rugby league to be concerned about. You had players with loved ones who were obviously in the high risk bracket, for grandparents and stuff like that. So there was a lot of stresses, not only whether we were going to get back to playing the game that we loved and being able to bring an income in, but then also the health risks of the pandemic. So making sure that your antennas were up to look for signs where some guys were struggling.
Yeah.
And again, what we started with the structure, that sort of went out the window a little bit when we were in isolation. So again, come back to that team, we made sure that we were still connected through, I guess, the social media and the WhatsApp groups. But the players were really good. They actually came up with a couple of exercises that we could all be together at the same time, and some of them involved some challenges at 4 a.m. out on your driveway, but everyone would log in and have the video.
Yeah,
It was just their way of saying that the whole team is doing the exact same thing at the same time, and that kept some connection there. So they've done a really good job of it, the guys, and that probably highlights the importance of teams, that they recognised, look, we might be away from each other in this isolation, but there are ways that we can be connected as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, again, another, I guess, similarity to business. I see too many business owners that employ people and think, do your job. Where, to me, I don't care what you're in. If you've got people working for you, you're in the business of people. And, that relationship piece, which, as you said, investing in and attaching to something is so important to get high performance or even solid performance, consistent performance.
Yeah, definitely.
So you started to allude there about engagement. That's my next question, really around, you've got a lot of people obviously that are coming from every different direction. stakeholders, whether it be, the boss, whether it be the players, whether it be the coaching staff, whether it be the NRL, whatever it may be. How do you get engagement, for one, with the different stakeholders, and particularly players and staff, I guess, and then how do you maintain it, especially when there might be a bump in the road or something like that?
Yeah, look, the thing with the coaching staff in particular, everybody has an area that they're responsible for. So I guess empowerment is huge there. I guess letting the staff or the coach own an area, and I was really fortunate coming through with Craig, as I said, being the attack coach, that he didn't micromanage. He just said, that's your area, and he would hold you accountable to it. So I think when someone empowers you with with an area that you're responsible for, and then leaves you to run it, then I remember feeling at the time, okay, I can't mess this up. This is hugely important, and this guy that's arguably the best coach in the game has given me a part of his team to look after, and I thought that was huge at the time. And I remember just diving into it, and really, I guess the empowerment made me just work my backside off, but be really thorough in order to get us where I thought we could get to. So certainly empowering your staff to own an area, but then there's some accountability, some KPIs where you can track the progress. I guess it's a lot easier with rugby league, with stats and performances that you can track how you're going, but it's important that you are touching on that. And then I think the other part is the care factor. You know yourself, you'll do absolutely anything for someone that cares about you. So I think looking for ways to show that you do care. I've never been in the business world, but I've seen that you have the monthly, I guess, prize for Employee of the Month, and usually it's a generic voucher. And I would often think, well, if it was Andrew that won the award, I'd find out something about you or your wife that you were passionate about, and the award should be that. So straight away there's a personal engagement. It's just not your token voucher. So I think, again, empowering someone to own an area, being able to track the progress, and highlighting when they are making progress, that you are, showing that you can recognise that, and giving them, everyone likes a pat on the back from time to time. Alternatively, if we are progressing, then looking for ways that you can help that staff member, or look for, I guess, the stuff that we've missed or what we're not doing well. But then the last part is just showing you care, because you spend too much time together and there's too much pressure involved in the job to not, care about each other.
Mate, you may not have been in the corporate or business world, but I think you do all right, because a lot of the things you're saying is very much top shelf. And I think the one you said there about the tracking, you say rugby league's got a lot of stats, business has a lot of stats. I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of the famous saying that says if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. In reality, the problem with most business owners is they don't measure. So there's always a way to measure. I don't care if it's feedback or if it's a door counter or whatever. That's what we've got to look at. So it's a good point. Okay, a bit more about you then. I see in our world a lot of people that, whether it be colleagues, whether it be clients, whatever it may be, that they get to an owner or get to a key position and think they're at top of the game, and they might be concerned about developing their people, but they stop developing themselves. And as far as I'm concerned, if you stop developing yourself, you're putting a ceiling there. And talk to me about your development and how you strive to continually improve or be better, and what others can learn from that.
Yeah, I think obviously being instilled in the Storm system, all the staff are encouraged for personal development. I've spent a lot of time, going to the States initially, going to the college, the NFL, and you can get into the trap of going over there and look at all this, I guess, facilities and money, and at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to get that back here. So it took a little while for me to, I guess, start to work with individuals, performance coaches and stuff like that, and looking at identifying areas that not necessarily around money or, the flash facilities, but ways of engagement with young athletes. So I spent a lot of time developing that. But I guess my love for development is, my greatest fear is being something that I'm asking the players to be that I'm not. So I often say to the staff, we preach to the players, we need you to be hardworking and prepared. But if they turn up to training and, we haven't planned a session thoroughly, then that's a bit of a nightmare for me. I think, standing in front of someone and asking them to do something that you're not willing to do yourself is a little bit, it's hypocritical for a start, but that would be, my biggest nightmare. So I'm constantly asking the guys to improve in areas, then I need to be doing that as well. And looking for better ways. There's always better ways or different ways to do things. And I really learnt that leaving the Storm and going to the Roosters. Two completely different, environments, but both really successful. And that, I guess that was a way of upskilling myself, that I knew a certain way and it was completely ingrained in me, but I knew for personal growth, and if I was ever going to become a head coach, that I needed to search for other ways to do things, because, as you said, there's not one way, but, making sure that you're finding the right ways is important.
But effectively it's innovation, isn't it? Constant improvement. So that's great. On the same point, I'm a big fan of reflection, whether it be after every meeting, after every pitch, after every day. You're sort of forced to have reflection. So I guess two parts. What is your view on reflection and how to utilise it? And then I guess, how is it assessing performance when you're scrutinised by so many different sources, but particularly media? Yeah,
look, reflection's huge for us, not just in the game, but in your week, in your days. We put a lot of time and effort into planning our training sessions, our training program, but it is really important that you go and sit back down and identify what worked, what didn't work. You look at the fighter pilots, they spend more time debriefing after a flight than anything else, because ultimately it's what keeps them alive, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they've got the flex method.
Yes. So look, we do that as well. Look, the coaches we have a certain level of anticipation on what the challenges are going to be in the session and making sure that we're staying ahead of it. But then the first thing that we do as coaches, before we go back inside and look at the vision, we sit down at a table and go through the session on what we felt worked. Then you'll back that up with, stats from the session. Obviously, we use GPS, and then you have the actual vision of itself. So tying it all in is a lot better than just having gut feel.
Yeah, so multiple sources of feedback.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, you have the game performance, which is scrutinised by everyone, by your supporters, your sponsors, the media, players themselves. We go through a really thorough review process after a game. So, usually the players are off, to recover, and the coaches dive into the vision and the stats and meetings, and then it becomes about the presentation process, where we'll meet in small units and then ultimately get to the team in the afternoon, and you have some pretty honest conversations. We call the room at Mayfield, our team theatre, the most honest room in Newcastle. So we want to encourage the guys to be open and upfront around their performances, good or bad. But certainly reflecting on what you've done will certainly help what you'll do next.
And I guess there's an element, you've got to listen to everything around you, so there's some truth in that, but you've also got to block a fair bit of noise too. So, I'd imagine for you, you'd be able to tell us a few stories, especially in Newcastle. Much easier to walk down the street after a win than a loss.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the people are entitled to their opinion, especially the ones that are, sticking their hand in their pocket. So, look, again, if you're going to accept the pats on the back, you have to accept the kicks up the bum as well. So you don't get to have it both ways. So, and we often talk about that. If you're going to read the press and you're going to read the good stuff, then you better be prepared to read the bad stuff as well.
That is a great point.
So for me personally, there's enough footy in my day than to spend my nights watching the shows and reading the articles. And I think anything that's going to steer me off course or potentially derail me from what I need to do next, I'll steer clear of. And look, I'm certainly not an expert at it yet. I'd imagine Craig and Robbo are a lot better at this than I am, but it's certainly a big part of the job and making sure that you have a handle on it, because pressure can, if it eats away at the coach, it's going to eat away at your team as well. So.
Yeah.
But look, I'm pretty fortunate. The town that I live in, I understand they're passionate supporters, and the good and the bad is coming from the same place. They want to see their team win on the weekend, so I sort of get that as well.
Yeah, that's good. We talked about teams before. I'll get another team question now. You've obviously been involved in team sport for a long time. You mentioned that. Now a head coach, first head coaching role in the NRL. We talked about the importance of teamwork, but I guess from a delegation sense, and you touched on what it was like in Melbourne, talk to me about how you delegate but still ensure the right outcome's achieved, or the outcome you're aiming for with your team.
Yeah, look, it's important. If I spread myself too thin across everything, I won't really achieve anything. So it's important. Look, at the end of the day, it comes back to the recruitment process when you're recruiting your staff in, then empowering them to have that role. Look, you're always keeping an eye across the whole organisation, but at the same time, trusting people that they're going to get their job done. I guess there's times there where you don't feel that they're going to get it done, that you have to step in and help them. But at the same time, look, we are a team, and it is machine-like. If everybody is doing their role, it makes it easier for me to be able to do mine. And again, it all sort of feeds back into one from what we've been saying previously. Just empowering them to get their job done is a form of, I guess, delegating. If you've recruited the right people into the place in the first place, then you're far more likely to achieve the role that you've delegated. But yeah, understanding, again, as a young coach, when you come in, you want to be across everything, but ultimately it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help your staff, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help the team, and you're only one person as the leader of the club, but understanding that you have good people around you and empowering them to get their job done is important.
Yeah, and you touched on something there about eagerness, I guess, as a young coach, etc. How do you realistically set those time frames? When you've got, as you said, supporters, powers that be, everyone's saying we want to win a premiership if that's your yardstick. How do you bring normality back? How do you bring, a pragmatic approach that you say, well, hang on, we've got to get to here first before we can get to that premiership, et cetera, et cetera. And how do you control your own emotions around that?
Yeah, look, ultimately for everyone in the organisation, the players and staff, is to win a premiership. But our mindset needs to be to put the club, the team, in a position to win multiple ones. That's important, and to get that done, you have to get your preparation. How do we behave? How do we train? What does that look like? Making sure that you're laying really solid foundations. If the premiership's the fancy roof, well, you want to make sure you've got really good solid foundations to make sure it stays up. That's sort of the way I look at things. You could go out and potentially get one premiership and nosedive if you don't have those solid foundations in place. So that's probably the main thing for me at the moment. I know it's cliche, but the other stuff will take care of itself if we look after the day-to-day, week-to-week stuff and ingraining that, I guess, culture around who we are and how we do things. That's really important. So that sort of, whilst in the back of my mind, the premiership is the ultimate for us. If I'm just focused on that, we'll miss the steps today to get us there.
And as you said, you don't want to win a premiership and then go to the bottom of the pole again. And we've seen teams do that all too often. Yeah,
the ultimate is as I said, put the team and the club in a position to win a premiership every year. Yeah. Should be the goal.
And it's similar in business. We talk about sale readiness. Not that you're necessarily selling, but you're in a position to sell at all times. If you're in that position, that you maximise your efforts. Yep. It's about that consistency. So, again, it's another similarity.
Yeah.
One for you now, and I guess they've all been for you, but this one a bit more probably personal. What's your hardest, but maybe your best lesson you've learned?
Hardest but best lesson. I think when I was a young bloke, I started an apprenticeship, and I remember it was a glazing apprenticeship, and the windows and stuff were made in a factory. And I worked for this tradesman, and I remember talking about, I don't know how we got down this personal nature, but we spoke about his pay packet at the end of the week. And I remember the figure that he gave, and I think I was 17 at the time, and I thought there's no way I'm ever going to be able to make something of myself on that pay packet. And I made a really, I guess, short-sighted decision based on money. And I remember hearing my mum and dad talking about, if you only ever base a decision on money, then he won't sort of reach the heights that, he could potentially be capable of. And I remember that sort of stuck with me a little bit, thinking, I don't want my parents to ever have to grow old and then worry what I've become. So I really didn't make another decision based on money, or a short-sighted decision based on money. And I think that's what took me to Melbourne. I left, I had a really decent job. I was playing footy up in North Queensland in Cairns. I'd purchased a home, so I was well on the way of, I guess, allaying any fears that my parents had. But the opportunity to work in the game that I loved in Melbourne, and as I said, I went there, I was on 50 grand to live in Melbourne, which obviously the rent was a lot different to Cairns. But had I not done that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now. And it took a lot of years to go through, and some sacrifices from both myself and my wife. But ultimately, a decision not about money has afforded us to live a pretty decent life now. And it wasn't harsh. It was the best lesson for me.
Yeah, good.
So.
Yeah, it's good. And you know what? It'd be you'd be in the, I guess, smaller percentile that has that, aspect too. So
yeah,
it's good. We could talk about this all day. We'll keep going all day, but in the interest of everyone's time and yours particularly, I'll finish with a couple around, getting back to the footy. This year, Knights obviously had a horrid run with injuries, but also for next year, some promising signings. Everyone always wants to know how the Knights go to Newcastle. What do you see as the future? And as you've sort of alluded to already, but what do you see as success?
Yeah, as I said, look, success for me is that the club's in a position every year to challenge for a premiership. That's the ultimate. I mean, the ultimate is to win one. That's. I'll make no mistakes. That's what we're chasing. But at the same time, I don't want to lose sight of the club needs to be sustainable for over a long period of time. For certainly for as long as I'm here, and for the next person that gets to be involved in the organisation after me, then the town, the region, the sponsors deserve a really competitive footy team. So, look, success for me is that our sponsors and our supporters can stand on that hill, have a beer, and walk away being proud of our performance. Now, take scoreboard out of that. If they've got a team that can turn up and have a genuine dig, then I can be pretty satisfied with that. Don't get me wrong, I love winning more than most things, but at the same time, if guys are putting in a performance that they can be proud of and hold their head up high, and one that our supporters and members and sponsors can, then I can be satisfied with that as well. Look, I feel like we are really building. We've got a good mixture of young players coming through, but we've added some experience, obviously, in Tyson Frizzell being the most notable.
Yeah.
Also Jesse Sue, who will add a lot to us as well.
But even the Blake Green, retaining him, he was for the 3 games, was very good.
Absolutely, and not only what Greeny gives us in the game, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, Greeny gives you in spades. So, I feel like we've got a competitive team now. But now it's about actually going after it and performing every week and being really consistent. And as I said, lay those foundations, and the roof will take care of itself at the end. Oh,
geez, mate, it'd be good if you think of the parties in '97 and 2001. You'd be drinking boots on, but mate, this is great. As I've been looking forward to this one, and we could talk all day, but it's constant time. Any other things that you think you see parallels with what you do in sport to business that maybe someone can learn from?
Yeah, as I said, the book Good to Great had nothing about sport in it. It was all about business, and as I said, it was one of the books that I've taken a lot away from. I guess understanding what it is that you do, what you're good at, and making sure that you're keeping the core business, I guess, paramount. And again, it aligns to everything, the delegation that you spoke about. If you spread your business too thin, I would imagine, again, I'm not, I guess, experienced. I've never owned my own business, but I think if you try and do too many things, then you'll miss that core element of what you're actually good at doing. So I'd imagine that would be very, very similar to what we do. We look at key aspects of our game that we want to keep paramount. And I guess the other part is making sure that you're recruiting good people that are involved in your business and empower them, and then show ways that you care about them and make sure that they're attached. I'd imagine that would go a long way to being successful business.
Great. I always try at the end of these put a bit of a wrap up. Like, there was a lot of pearls in that. This will be good, but I'll give it a crack. So some of the things I had just for viewers there: structure and consistency. You know, that's gold. Getting good people on board and actually, you know, showing them that you care. You know, focusing on the relationships and empowering them. You know, if you've got empowerment, you can hold that accountability, but realistically, if they're caring and you're the custodian of that, well, you get a good result. Set an example. I love that you said that. You know, don't do anything or ask other people to do something that you wouldn't do. Reflection, you more than anyone has to reflect. You're forced to reflect, but you know, everyone should be doing that every day and just constantly looking how it can be better. Delegation, you know, relying on your team and making sure you delegate. And I'm going to finish with your gold one. You said your hardest lesson. I thought that was brilliant. That, you know, money realistically will be an outcome. It's not something to base your decisions on. So I'm sure there was many more lessons in there, but you know, watch that and get for yourself. But mate, that was great, and really appreciate the time you've given us and for the viewers. So thanks for joining me. Hopefully not getting you in trouble with COVID there, but all the best until the next one. This will be the last one for the year. So Merry Christmas, and thanks for watching. Cheers.